The most common version of Kingdom Hearts 1 that most people will play nowadays will be the version that's found within HD Remix, which is actually Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix. The Final Mix subtitle means that the game has been extended, new content has been added, and changes have been made. This released exclusively in Japan back in December of 2002, only a few months after the original version had first released back in March. And it wouldn't be until 2013 where the rest of the world would finally be able to experience the Final Mix version of the first game. The most up-to-date iteration of the first game can be played on PC via either Steam or EGS, as these versions do have a few additional features beyond that of what's included on PlayStation 4 and Xbox. However, I thought it would be interesting to go back to the very first release of the game, and no, I'm not talking about the international version that most of us played growing up. I'm rather talking about the original Japanese version released on the 28th of March 2002. Some might not know this, but there are actually differences between the Japanese original and the international original. For a few months there, the rest of the world actually had a more definitive version of Kingdom Hearts 1, including more content compared to that original Japanese version. Ever since the Kingdom Hearts games have been receiving remasters over this past decade, a lot of newcomers have jumped onto the Kingdom Hearts train to play these games for the very first time, but most will be completely out of the know as to what the original version of these games looked like compared to the ones we have now. So, for history's sake, let's dive in and revisit the original release of Kingdom Hearts and look at all of its differences. But before we dive in, a quick message from today's sponsor. Do you like Marvel? Do you like turn-based RPGs? Then Marvel Strike Force might just tickle your interest. Marvel Strike Force is a free-to-play, squad-based mobile RPG where you can recruit hundreds of familiar Marvel superheroes and villains. Fan favorites like Venom, Iron Man, Wolverine, and Deadpool are here, baby. Thanks to the synergy system, certain team compositions can provide an extra edge where two characters from the same faction can help boost one another, adding a nice dollop of tactical depth into this cake mix. Collect and craft gear to strengthen your squad and take on lengthy campaign scenarios to level up. Strike Force offers multiple new stories within the Marvel Universe. The game offers a bunch of regularly updated modes to throw your team into, like Blitz, PvP arenas, regular events, and multiplayer alliance raids where you'll team up with other players to take on strong encounters for some juicy rewards. Right now you can get a nice jump start as new players can unlock 17 characters within the first 30 days of playing for free, which includes Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Thor. Because it's spooky season, this October sees the release of new undying zombie characters like Juggernaut, Scarlet Witch, Hela, and Kestrel. However, Strike Force is offering Zombie Iron Man for nothing but air using promo code Halloween, but only during October. Use the link in the description down below or scan the QR code on screen to start assembling your squad now. First up, let's take a look at the visuals. There's quite a stark contrast when looking at the graphics of the original to the current version we have now on PC. The PC version actually introduced enhanced textures via the use of AI upscaling, but it's also important to note too that the visuals were significantly enhanced as well for the PlayStation 3 1.5 version all those years ago in 2013. For those that don't know, the original source code of Kingdom Hearts 1 was actually lost, as back then it wasn't common for Japanese developers to keep their source codes. This meant for 1.5 that Square Enix would have to extract the data from a retail copy of the game in order to recreate the textures and assets of Kingdom Hearts 1, so a lot of these received touch-ups, and this is especially noticeable when looking at character models for the likes of Sora here. A lot of his finer details within his model are a lot more noticeable and a lot more refined compared to the original version. It's funny, I'm easily able to tell what version of Kingdom Hearts 1 or even 2 I'm looking at based on Sora's hair of all things, as his hair texture was redesigned for the remixes. In order to make these comparison clips as clear as possible, I'm playing the original Japanese version on the PCSX2 emulator with the internal resolution bumped up to 4K, that way we can have an accurate comparison between the two versions. And even though a lot more finer details stand out within the environment on the current PC version, it is incredibly impressive just how well Kingdom Hearts 1 still holds up from a visual point of view, still to this day in 2025. It's thanks to that art style that has kind of made the Kingdom Hearts games timeless. Some people are probably going to point this out, so I may as well just comment on it. When looking at the mailbox in Travis Town, you might notice that the original version here, its sign says post, but for the newer remix version, it says mail. This isn't actually a difference between the original and the new version, but rather it's a localization thing. Like I said, some assets and textures ended up being remade for the HD remix version. For example, here in Destiny Islands, the original version actually uses a slightly different texture for its skybox. Or looking at the cobblestone texture for the walls in Travis Town, they're actually in a completely different order compared to the original. The HUD for the game was also cleaned up for the HD remix versions. The original game was never intended to be played on widescreen, but rather in 4:3 ratios, so these HUD elements were all repositioned and cleaned up to look better in higher resolution. Now looking at the performance of the game, this was an aspect that's really hard to go back to when you're so used to either 60 frames per second or 120 frames per second on the newer versions of the game, as the original on PlayStation 2 ran at 30 frames per second. Because I'm adjusted to playing all of the Kingdom Hearts games on such a higher frame rate than 30, going back to 30 FPS often sometimes feels like you're playing the game in slow motion. It is something you adjust to, but because Kingdom Hearts is an action RPG, it just feels better when played at higher frame rates. Weirdly enough, the PlayStation 3 versions of the HD remixes never released at 60 frames per second. They were still 30, which is odd considering that a lot of the PlayStation 2 remasters for PS3 ran at 60 frames per second. This seemed to be more so of a Square Enix thing for their remasters released on PS3. They all came out at 30 FPS. It wouldn't be until the PlayStation 4 releases of the Kingdom Hearts games where we finally got to experience them at 60. On the PlayStation 2 versions of Kingdom Hearts 1, you would control the camera with R2 and L2, and the right analog stick could be used to navigate the command menu. This meant that you could never move the camera up or down on the PlayStation 2 versions, which made the camera controls of the original very awkward. It was actually one of the more common complaints people had for Kingdom Hearts 1. And Square Enix took notice of this criticism, making camera control bound to the right analog stick for the PlayStation 2 release of Kingdom Hearts 2. It wouldn't be until the release of 1.5 HD Remix on PS3 where finally you could control the camera freely with the right analog stick. In the original version, the triangle button's only purpose was to be able to command your party members to attack whatever you're locked onto. So this meant for activating special abilities like RSR Cannon or Strike Raid, or interacting with things in the environment, you would have to scroll down to the bottom of the command menu. The option to interact with NPCs would replace the attack option on the command menu. It wasn't until Kingdom Hearts 2 that provided the triangle button with more of a general purpose towards examining and interacting with things. And with the release of Kingdom Hearts 1.5, Square Enix finally implemented general triangle button purpose for examining things, interacting with things, and for the use of special abilities. In the original, you couldn't freely move the world select cursor. It would lock on from one world to another in sequence, meaning that to zip from one side of the world map to another was a little bit slow. This was changed in 1.5 to allow you to freely move the cursor. In the original, to activate summons, you had to go into the magic command menu. This is because the bottom of the command menu again was used for general purpose interacting, or of course your special attack abilities. In 1.5, Square Enix changed the bottom option of the command menu to become the new summon menu to match Kingdom Hearts 2. In the PlayStation 2 versions of Kingdom Hearts 1, when you're standing outside of Merlin's house, you can hear some owl sound effects. This is likely a reference to Archimedes, who is the owl that appears in Sword in the Stone. For whatever reason, this owl sound effect was removed for the HD remix versions of the game. Floating platforms in Halloween Town have a unique function in the original versions of the game that was removed for the HD remix version. Not only could you use fire, but you could also use blizzard on these platforms to create a blue flame that would freeze the platform in place. Although this doesn't really serve much of a purpose, it is bizarre that Square Enix decided to remove this for the HD remix version. Exclusive to the original Japanese version, using the Blue Trinity to warp yourself up to the balcony here rather than a chest containing the postcard, it's actually a barrel. To get the postcard, you'd simply just break the barrel, and fun fact, you can't actually pick this barrel up. I believe that this is the only instance throughout Kingdom Hearts where a crate or a barrel actually contains an item. Another OG exclusive thing here is the crates that can be found in Monstro. Randomly, there are 2 floating interactable crates, and when swum into, they will break. They don't actually serve a purpose, though doing some research, it is believed that they can be used to create a sequence break. What the sequence break is, I'm unsure. These 2 crates were removed in all other versions. And speaking about Monstro, it's often cited that it's one of the more confusing worlds of Kingdom Hearts. Navigating the chambers is almost like a labyrinth. A fun fact about this world is that there's an easy way to know which chamber to go into to navigate through them, as the right chamber door glows green. However, at least looking at the very first version of Kingdom Hearts here, the green chamber door glow is not present. I'm unsure as to what version Square Enix decided to add this function into, possibly in response to the criticism towards the confusing navigation of the chambers. In the original Japanese version, there are no difficulty options. There is one preset difficulty, which I'm assuming is probably a standard mode. The international release that came out a few months afterwards was shipped with a normal mode and an expert mode. And the Final Mix version that released in Japan at the end of 2002 shipped with 3 difficulty modes: beginner mode, Final Mix mode, which is standard, and a new hardest difficulty, Proud mode. Interestingly though, there was a lot of rebalancing that took place between the original Japanese version to the international release. Both normal Heartless and bosses had much more health in the Japanese version. For example, the Rock Titan had 4,500 HP, but for the international version this was reduced to 2,100 HP. To keep this balanced though, a lot of these enemies received slight general stat increases for the international. XP drops for bosses were also nerfed in the international version. For instance, Ursula would give you 7,000 XP in Japanese OG, but this was significantly reduced to 1,500 XP in the international. Something fun I noticed, here in the original, the tech point pop-up has 2 exclamation marks, whereas in the international PS2 and HD Remix versions, it simply just has tech without any exclamation marks. The OG Japanese version and Final Mix Japanese version included an additional option on the main menu, which was Install. For those that don't know, the original PlayStation 2 Fat model had an expansion bay around the back of the console. This allowed you to connect either an Ethernet port adapter or a hard drive. Although this was officially implemented for PlayStation 2, there was only a small handful of games between North America, Europe, and Japan that actually supported the hard drive function. It was more commonly used in Japan though. Looking at the list of supported games for Japan, more than doubles the supported games looking at US and Europe. The Japanese release of Kingdom Hearts is among these, and installing Kingdom Hearts to a PlayStation 2 hard drive would create a 1.2 gigabyte file that would reduce load times. This was the primary function of the hard drive. Rather than the PlayStation 2 reading the game from the disc, it would read the data from the hard drive, for the sole purpose of reducing game load time. There were only a few games that truly required the use of a PlayStation 2 HDD, like Final Fantasy XI. As it was an online MMORPG, it required expansions along with update patches that would be installed to the HDD. And talking about the Kingdom Hearts 1 main menu, this is the vanilla artwork that was used for the main menu screen. Sora standing on the shore holding a stick with a fishbone in his mouth. The artwork was changed to Sora holding a flag with his hood up for the Final Mix releases. This is of course also used in the HD Remix version. And even the font used for the menu options was changed for HD Remix to match the font used in more modern Kingdom Hearts titles. There was also no theater mode in the original PlayStation 2 releases. It also wasn't even in the PlayStation 3 release of 1.5. Rather, it was added in as a free DLC people could download for the PlayStation 4 version in 2017. This is a huge one that a lot of Kingdom Hearts OGs will know about. In the original PlayStation 2 versions, whether it be international or Japanese, there was no cutscene skipping. This was excruciatingly painful because it meant that if you were to die in a boss fight that had a cutscene that would play before the fight would initiate, you would have to watch that cutscene every single time you would go to reattempt the boss fight. Ansem Riku is undoubtedly the most infamous case of this, as when we were kids, this fight was especially difficult. Ansem Riku is considered to be one of the harder story boss fights, and because there was no skip cutscene option, we had to watch Ansem Riku's speech every single time we died. It is I, Ansem.
Kyrie's inside of me?
A staple point feature of any Kingdom Hearts Final Mix entry is changing up the enemy color palette. Back in the day, before the localized versions of the Final Mixes released, it was a real rarity to see these alternate color palettes of the Heartless. Nowadays though, it's actually the other way around. The original color palettes have become the more rare versions, as the most commonly played version of Kingdom Hearts is going to be Final Mix. It's a real shame that Square Enix never made it an option for Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and Birth by Sleep to be able to toggle between the two different sets of color palettes. Seeing the purple guard armor in Kingdom Hearts 1 again brought a small tear to my eye. Now let's talk about the additional content that was added into Kingdom Hearts 1. The post-game content for all vanilla versions of the mainline Kingdom Hearts games have always lacked until the Final Mix version released, or in Kingdom Hearts 3's case, the DLC drop. It is no different here for Kingdom Hearts 1. The original Japanese version especially lacked post-game content. Did you know that this version of the game only had one secret boss, and that was the Phantom Heartless in Neverland? For a while there, Sephiroth, Kurt Ziza, and the Ice Titan were exclusive to the international version of Kingdom Hearts 1. So other than general completion of stuff or crafting the Ultima weapon, there wasn't a lot of stuff to do once you had finished the game in the original Japanese release. Final Mix would end up adding a new hardest secret boss in the game, Unknown, which would tease Xemnas, the main antagonist for Kingdom Hearts 2. Final Mix also added in two brand new Keyblades, Diamond Dust upon defeating Ice Titan, and One-Winged Angel for defeating Sephiroth. A bunch of new accessories were also added to the game available to synthesize. In fact, the synthesis chart increased from 25 to 33. Amongst the new equipment you could now craft, Donald and Goofy received the Fantasia Staff and 7 Elements Shield. However, the Ultima weapon became a lot harder to craft in the Final Mix version compared to the original due to the addition of 11 new unique Heartless that can be found in each world, dropping a specific new unique material. These unique Heartless almost act as mini-games of sorts, requiring specific methods towards being defeated in order to receive the material drop. Some of their mini-games are quite challenging to complete, which made completing the synthesis chart in Final Mix much harder compared to the original version. 3 new Ansem reports were added into the Final Mix version, 11 through to 13, and these could be obtained from defeating Kurt Ziza, Sephiroth, and Unknown. Report number 13 though is especially interesting as it's the very first point in the Kingdom Hearts games that introduces the concept of nobodies. 11 new abilities were added into the Final Mix version, and this was much needed. Much like Kingdom Hearts 3, where Sora's base combo was very bland and underwhelming for the base version of that game, it was a very similar situation here in Kingdom Hearts 1 vanilla. Final Mix gave Sora abilities like Gravity Break, Stun Impact, Ripple Drives and Tetsuken, Sliding Dash, Slapshot, which of course all of these heavily expanded upon Sora's base moveset. It's hard to believe, but Leaf Bracer was even a Final Mix exclusive ability. You know, the ability that makes you invulnerable while healing? The EXP Zero ability was never present on any of the PlayStation 2 versions of the game and was added into the HD 1.5 Remix version. Because 11 new abilities were added into the game, it meant that the order in which Sora received certain abilities were completely rearranged in Final Mix. For example, in the original, Sora would obtain Scan at level 12 if he had picked the shield, but in the Final Mix version, picking the shield, Sora would obtain Scan at level 21. These changes were applied to every ability in the game, providing a very different leveling experience for the OG compared to the version we have now. A brand new mission mode was added to the Gummy Ship system for every single world route. There are 3 missions for each route that requires you to complete a specific objective, like destroy 220 ships without using brakes or collect 10 armor blocks. This is a nice addition to make the Gummy Ship system more of a mini game and just extra stuff to do with the gummy ship system, as completing these missions would give you brand new gummy ship parts and new blueprints for brand new gummy ship designs. Enemy gummy ships even received recolors, just like the Heartless, along with brand new enemy ship placements throughout different routes. There were a few new cutscenes that were added into Kingdom Hearts 1 Final Mix, like Riku's time in Hollow Bastion, the confrontation between Cloud and Sephiroth after you defeat Sephiroth in Olympus Coliseum, and a small cutscene on Destiny Islands with Kairi talking about the origins of her good luck charm. The secret ending for the Final Mix version was also expanded upon. Another Side, Another Story got the deep dive version for Final Mix, increasing the runtime from 1 minute and about 20 seconds in the original to over 3 minutes for Final Mix, showing us a lot more of the Riku and Roxas fight. It also teases Xemnas' and Roxas' interaction in the Dark Margin from Kingdom Hearts 2. And the final change here is the music. In the original, the music was created using synthesizers, but for HD Remix, most of the tracks were re-recorded using a live orchestra. So those are all of the changes between the vanilla version of Kingdom Hearts to the version that we have today. You can see that the game has come quite a long way in the sense of some modernizations, and of course additional new enhancements and features that have been added since. I have to say though that going back and experiencing that original version of the game really has reminded me how well Kingdom Hearts 1 has held up for a 2002 video game. I think Kingdom Hearts 1 has aged pretty well. There are definitely some glaring issues with the game itself, but it's such a unique Kingdom Hearts experience, and for its time, it is absolutely one of the best action RPGs out there, even still to this day. If you want to see a similar video on Kingdom Hearts 2, I did that a few years back. I'll leave the link to that in the description down below. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to slippity slap that like button, it helps me out more than you know, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Big thanks to my wonderful patrons, I appreciate your ongoing support, and of course my YouTube members. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.